Welcome to 30 minutes of talking about stuff. This is the program where I talk about stuff for 30 minutes. Whether you care about the subject or not. So that's basically what's going to be going on for 30 minutes. I'm just going to talk about whatever pops into my head. It's completely unplanned. And hopefully I'll get some good YouTube shorts out of it because those actually get views. And these little recordings do not. Except for one of them did. The second one I did. The second 30-minute recording I did actually got 50 views. 20 of them were my own. 30 were from other people, which was a surprise. But I think they only listened for 30 seconds. So statistically, if you've made it this far, you're like beating the average. Beating the crowd. They probably listened less than 30 seconds. I probably made the number higher because when I was listening, I listened for more than 30 seconds because I would try to find bits to turn into shorts, to turn into YouTube shorts. And, yeah. And so every once in a while you're going to hear this sound. That's just my chair. So you're gonna have to deal with that. So yeah, but I guess I'll just jump into things that I'm thinking about. So the first thing I guess I'm gonna talk about is, as far as these recordings go, there's a number of ways I can improve them. The first one might be adding like music stuff or sound effects. I don't really know how to do that though. I am doing this on my phone with just the voice memo app actually. So I don't really know how I would go about adding sound effects. I know you could do that if you were like live streaming or something. If you're live streaming or something, then you could just like add sound bits and it wouldn't, and you can have videos in the background and stuff. But I just don't know how to do that. So we'll see about that. Probably won't happen for a week. But yeah, I mean, the more like stimulants I put into these things, the more interesting it is. I mean, I have to think about it from a listener's perspective because as I listen to shit sometimes, from time to time, I dabble in listening to shit, and I prefer it when it has more stimulating stuff. I remember I used to like the videos that had cartoons, like story videos. I loved story videos, and I way preferred the ones that had cartoons over the ones that had just a blank screen. But then it's like if I'm walking around the house and listening, or if I'm playing video games and listening, then I really don't need a visual. And that's what I think people should do with these recordings if they want to listen. Is they should like clean around the house or watch or like play Call of Duty or something while they listen. Otherwise it's going to be really boring. If you're like looking at a screen that's not moving, I don't know why you would do that. It's really a multitasking kind of content is how you should be using this. So, yeah, I guess that's what I have to say about these videos. It's kind of a intro to kind of an update on the content. I'm up to 39 subscribers last I checked, which is surprising. And pretty meaningless because I don't think any of the subscribers actually like go back to videos and watch them. I think most of my subscribers, like 26 of them or something, came from when I did like 3 Pixar videos and I turned them into shorts. And so those got a lot. And so they might only tune into Pixar videos. And when people subscribe to YouTube Shorts, I don't think they like consistently watch your stuff anyway. So, But it's fun to look at. It's fun to go, oh, I have 39. It's a fun number to look at and go, oh, it's almost like unbelievable. And it's like, it's only 39, but it still feels really impressive. You know, as something that's like, I just started like that. Like, just like a kind of a low effort thing. You know. But we'll see how that goes. And if it expands, if it grows, if the number grows, and if people actually start tuning in and all that stuff. But, you know. So I guess now I'm going to have to move on to an actual topic that's unrelated to the just talking about the videos. So I guess I'll just talk about the marathon. I guess I can talk about the marathon I just ran. I ran a marathon. It was pretty good. To start off, we stayed in a hotel and we drove to the site of the marathon. It was like a 30-minute drive, and then we were in this parking lot, and then we would have to take a bus to the actual marathon from the parking lot. Because the marathon was in a remote location. It was the Jack and Jill Downhill Marathon in Washington. So we had to get a bus. And so we were in this bus, and it was literally the last bus going out. So we were already kind of late because they were running behind schedule. And it was like, this bus is taking a while. And we hear the bus driver say, guys, I missed the exit. And he's like, I shouldn't have missed that exit. I've done this route before. It was just really sad. I didn't mind much, actually, though. I think other people minded. If you wanted a pacer, so there's pacers in marathons, then it would be sad. But for me, I thought it was fine. I didn't care too much. But we got to the marathon really late, and there was nobody else there. So we had to run like by ourselves. Like, usually there's like a bunch of people and it's kind of a party. Everyone's like, yeah, the marathon, yeah, let's go. But instead it was just us, and it was kind of like, okay, now you can go. And like right at the beginning of the marathon, there's this tunnel, and I was kind of nervous about the tunnel because I was like, oh, what if I get like claustrophobic or something? Because it's a 2-mile tunnel with no lights. We had to bring flashlights, but it ended up being fine and fun. So the tunnel was no problem. There were a lot of holes in the tunnel, but and with puddles and stuff, the holes had puddles, but it was, I enjoyed it. And throughout the entire marathon, so like 4 hours, and I ran in 4 hours and 5 minutes. Throughout the entire marathon, I listened to an audiobook. Okay, the audiobook was called The Gospel According to Christ's Childhood Friend Biff. And it's a rude and crude book with a lot of jokes about kind of like crude topics. So like I'd be running past people, and then the audiobook would start talking about like sex with animals and stuff. And it's like, it's just embarrassing. I'd have to pause it or turn it down or something when I passed people. And the other thing is like, yeah, it was just really awkward because I'd be passing women and stuff, and it was like, yikes. There's also, there's a little kid on the marathon. There was like this 60-year-old guy, and then there was a like 5-year-old kid, and it was like, that kid, I was thinking in my head, that kid should not be running this marathon. His legs were really small. It didn't make sense to me. The fucked up part was he was almost running faster than me. That was embarrassing. He was literally he was like 8. He was really small. He was like half my height. I'm like 6 foot. He was like 4 feet tall or something. So that was kind of fucked up to see, but I think he was crying at one point. I was like, whoa. But, and when you run a marathon, you got to wonder, why are these people running this marathon? But marathons are a good thing to do. They give you a goal, give you something to train for, something to do. That can be very exciting. Gives you some point of focus so you're less confused. And that's a whole thing, is confusion. And with just life, it's like, I'm confused. I want to alleviate this confusion by deciding on something and doing it. Which is nice, because confusion can cause a lot of confusion. Confusion causes, like, inefficiency and whatever, which isn't much of a problem, really, when you think of it. But, I don't know. I mean, nothing's really a problem when you think about it too much. But then that becomes a problem. You think about things too much. Like, what's your goal? Is it bad? Like, is a thing bad? If you want to know if a thing is bad, look at what it does to your goal. Do you have something you want to happen? Well, what does this thing do to that? And then you work with that and you go, oh, this is good, this is bad. But, the other day I watched a movie called American Graffiti, and I liked it a lot. This is like this is totally off topic from the marathon, so I hope I didn't like just surprise you there by just like changing topics there super quick. But I watched American Graffiti the other day. It was on Netflix, and it was a great movie. It had a really good music. It was by George Lucas, I believe. At least it was by Lucasfilms or whatever. And it was really good. Had good music. Had really good like stories. The characters were good. See, old movies cared a lot about dialogue and such back then, and character development. These days they don't. Because I was watching these old movies and I was like, I looked it up and it was like, why were old movies better? And the thing said, well, old movies were different because they focused more on dialogue. They had a lot more dialogue and they had a lot more character development. And I think that's a lot better. And it's hard to write good dialogue because you got to go, what are people like? You have to if you want to make good shit, you have to really understand stuff. That's why that's why it's hard to make something that's good, While we're on the topic of movies, I saw online people were saying the Barbie movie was doing really well because it's like a really good movie. I disagree. I think it did well because on the first day alone, like, it broke records, okay? You don't break records the first day by being a good movie, because on the first day, people don't know if it's a good movie. The movie was doing well before it even came out because people were saying they wanted to watch it, okay? That's all hook. That's not based on quality. That's all hook. So, movies do well based on their hook. Is this a movie people want to see? People make up their minds before they even get to the movie. And then it can be fine. Now, something that I think that doesn't work with is video games. If a video game has a lot of hype, it can do really bad because it will literally not be playable. And then in that case, people will have a big problem. But if it's a movie, then people will go, oh, this movie's going to be awesome. And then it's like... And then if it's fine, it's still going to be very well appreciated. Because of just the hook alone. If the hook is significant enough, then people will associate the movie with that good hook feeling, which is its own pleasure in itself. You go, this movie has a good hook. I mean, you don't think that consciously, but in the back of your head, you're like, I really enjoyed the hype. And so you appreciate the film, even if it was bad. And there's plenty of movies that are bad that are still enjoyable. And what I mean by that is they're kind of done shitty or lazy or they didn't do a good job. But I still like it because I have fun with it. But then there's other movies that are just really just just not smart or entertaining, and those movies suck. Like, I was watching the beginning of the movie Funny People, which is on Netflix, where Adam Sandler basically goes, it's a fiction movie, but he's kind of playing himself, it seems like, where he goes, oh, I became a big movie star, but I kind of want to go, he was diagnosed with an illness, and then he's like, well, maybe I want to be maybe I want to be a stand-up comedian again, like I started, because that was a lot of fun. He's watching, like, old recordings of himself and stuff. And it just didn't seem interesting at all. I didn't care at all. It wasn't funny. The movie wasn't funny. If you're gonna name your movie Funny People, then it should at least be funny. That's my opinion. Or at least it should be entertaining. But it wasn't. It wasn't at all. I had to turn it off. It was so bad. But there was another movie before it, that was like, it's like called Screwed Up or something. It was, anyway, it was a movie where people are like graduating and they have to figure out what they're going to do after graduation. It's on Netflix. And I actually enjoyed it, even though I thought it was like a bad movie, kind of. Like, I thought maybe the acting was weird. It was like, it was a weird movie. I don't know if bad, calling a movie bad doesn't really make sense. It was like it was weird. It was a weird movie. Like, the plot and the acting and maybe the intention of the movie was flawed, but I still enjoyed it a lot. And I enjoyed it because the characters were interesting, and what they had to say was, they had interesting conversations. It was a dialogue-focused movie, which is good. Because then I feel like you get a lot out of that if it has a lot of good dialogue. They're not captive. They're not holding your attention by doing weird noises and stuff or weird images. They're capturing your attention by having interesting things to say and being intelligent in some way. So it's you get more out of that, is my opinion. There was a movie I watched that was entirely dialogue. It was just one conversation. It might as well have been a podcast, except for it was written beforehand. So it's not like a podcast. It was like it was as if it was like a pre-written podcast. That movie was My Dinner with Andre, and that's on YouTube. You can watch that for free. And I really liked that movie. God, I guess I'm just talking about movies the whole time. But you know what? I have watched a lot of movies recently. And I have more movies to talk about, so I guess that's what we're going to talk about further. I watched Whiplash last night. It was really good. It's about a guy who... and so Whiplash was... There's a musician, kid that wants to be like the best drummer he can be, and so he's at like the best school for music in the country or something. And his teacher's really aggressive. Well, first he has to like prove himself to the teacher, and then the teacher's really aggressive and mean, and then it turns out it's like, well, if you want to be the best, you have to really like torture yourself, and your teacher has to torture you kind of. But then eventually you can do something really like great. But also there's a huge cost to that, and maybe it's not worth it. And that's kind of I watched like 2 videos about the movie, and those were the ideas they presented. One of them said that maybe the teacher was like the devil, and that the main character had to like sell his soul to him, kind of. And that's interesting to know, but I don't know. I liked it's brutally honest about the way success works, and the reason why not everybody is like quote successful unquote. Like, it's to be the best, it does not mean you're gonna have fun, and it's not like advisable for like dopamine levels necessarily. So it's really, I think it does a good job of showing people the truth about success in that way. And I have I really do think that like the way people work, people will say, oh, I want to achieve this or that, or I want this or that. Or I want to do this or that, or I did this or that because of this or that. I'm saying this or that a lot, but I think what people actually do is they do whatever is the easiest thing for them to do. People might hear that and go, "What? You ran a marathon. That wasn't easy, was it?" Well, I'll tell you, it was. It was the easiest thing I could do. It's because it's what I did. It was the easiest thing that I could do because if I didn't run the marathon, I wouldn't have known what to do with myself, and I would have been bored, and I would have had an urge to accomplish something. So by running the marathon, I satisfy those needs that I have within myself, those impulses, which are apparently, based on what's happened, they're harder to ignore than to follow. And it's like, why wouldn't you do what's easiest? But the word easy is being used in kind of a weird way here. So I understand if it sounds like confusing or disagreeable. But what I'm saying is, you're like a river and you just flow, and that's the truth. Or, yeah, like you're guided by gravity. There's certain impulses within your body. The whole thing starts when you're conceived, and then you're just doing that whole game, and it's totally just up to the rules of nature after that. It's just one big happening. It's like I don't believe in free will either, but you could get into that because when I say I don't believe in free will, you could take that to mean something, and if you do, then you probably don't get what I mean. Because when I say I don't believe in free will, I mean, look at your behavior and figure out what you mean when you say you had control. So, you go, I had control over that. And then I would say, well, what did you have control over? And then they say, well, I had control over my thoughts. And I would say, well, how do you know you had control over your thoughts? And they would say, well, I'm choosing to think of an elephant right now. And I would say, well, how do you know that you had control over that thought? How do you know that something wasn't controlling that? And then they go, well, I don't even know what they would say to that. I don't know why I don't know what they would say to that, because I've had these conversations a lot. But my point is basically you don't. And if you try to define control, it gets very gray. What is control? It's like what is control? I mean, you think about it. Because when I think of it, my mind goes to nothing. So I'm not going to sit here and think, because that wouldn't be content, that wouldn't be productive, that wouldn't be words. My word count would be low if I just sat here and thought about what control is, because I would have nothing to say about it. If I thought about it for an hour, I might have something to say about it, but as for now, if I try to define it, I could look up the definition. I guess I'll look up the definition of control. We're getting a little fancy here by adding the internet to this little 30-minute talking session. But control definition. Okay, so the first definition is the power to influence or direct people's behavior or the course of events. Okay. Okay. Well, the power, influence, and direction are all, I would say, synonyms. Power is a synonym of control. So, the control of other people's behavior or the course of events. Yeah, okay, so that's and then the next definition is a group or individual used as a standard comparison for checking their. Oh, that's the scientific definition as a control group. Okay. Well, okay, so basically the definition of control is so meaningless it doesn't even have any value. It doesn't. But I must admit, I would still use the word control if I was talking to somebody and trying to get them to do something. So I'm in somewhat of a bind here where I don't think the word has meaning, but I have to use the word if I want to convey a message to somebody. If somebody was continuously eating my sandwich, if I had a lot of sandwiches in the fridge and somebody kept eating them, then I would say, and they said, "Oh, I don't have control," I would say, well, would I? I was going to say, I would say you do have control, but I guess what I would say is you have as much control over that as you do over brushing your teeth, or something that they probably think they have control over. To me, it's all net zero. Like, there is no distinction between stuff you control and don't control. To me, that's all the same. I don't think that's, and from what I've said, I don't think that's a very disagreeable idea. I mean, if you were to, I've just thought about it a lot, is all. But it's not even very, it's not significant. So, yeah. I feel like I've been talking for like 25 minutes and I've said like almost nothing that I can turn into good shorts for content. So that sucks, kind of. But I think the overall 30-minute like video is actually good. Like, I think it's been a fun, like, I think I've had fun with talking about stuff, and so therefore it's like more fun to listen to. I don't think I've talked about bowling recently, like on any of the other videos I've done. By the way, you should watch all of the other ones if you want to. I don't know. You know what you would gain from them? Probably nothing. But it's kind of like perfect for if you're playing Call of Duty or doing chores. You can just listen to it. And I think it's entertaining enough. Hear what the real people are saying, you could share it. You can make it a thing. Oh yeah, let's listen to a 30-minute rambling. Listen to me. And right now I'm just selling it. I've spent like 10 minutes of this 30 minutes just selling my own shit, kind of going, "Oh, you should listen to this. Oh, you should like, subscribe, and share it." That's the truth. It's for good luck. You'll get good luck. I don't even know what I was talking about now. What was I talking about before I started? Bowling. I was going to talk about bowling. I'm shocked I got that thought back. That thought was gone, and now it returned like a boomerang. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think it's called that. A boomerang. By the way, the video I don't know if you've seen the video, but the bear from China, people were like, "Oh, that might be a man in a bear costume." Dude, it's a real bear. It's got to be a real bear. You couldn't just have a man in a costume. That is funny, though. I think people might be memeing on that. But I was going to talk about bowling. Bowling is awesome. It's just really satisfying. Because you go for a strike, and then you get a strike, and you're like, "Holy shit, I got a strike." It's just so cool. And plus, you get to do it over and over again. But then there's those little gaps because you have to wait your turn. And so it stays interesting. And you're competing with others. Another good one is ping pong because you get to compete with others. And it's like a simple, fun thing. Anything like that I just love. And bowling, I feel like I'm getting better. I think to myself, straight. And then I try to do a straight line. And that works pretty well. And bowling has a fun atmosphere. I like the bowling places where they have the big TVs. So like the more probably less authentic or old bowling places where they have that, where they have the big TVs with like music or sports on. I love that because it's more exciting. And it's fun. There's a bunch of people. What I've noticed is sometimes there will be like ethnic groups at the bowling alley. Like it will be a bunch of Asian people and their wives, and they all just come and they're bowling and they're like extremely good. And it's like, wow, that's interesting. I have no interest in becoming extremely good at bowling, but I do have interest in kind of getting as good as I can with my little average Joe strategy of just trying to go straight in a straight line. But, I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening. Like, share, subscribe. There you go, etc. Thanks. Peace.